So I had a really weird one this week. I mixed this record by a band called Lady Radiator in 2007. The song is called Box Turtle.
Box
Box
Turtle,
Turtle.
magnificent, isn't she?
I start getting texts that are like, so that record you did in 2007 is now really, really viral on TikTok. Then I get texts like, I know you did this, you made this go viral. And I replied, if I could do that, I would do it with something I have much more of a financial stake in rather than zero financial stake in. Thank you very much. As we can see, for a while now, they have had some listeners that have always zoned in on the record. We can see 2 years ago, it was around 2,000 monthly listeners, but now they are at 303,000 because TikTok picked them up. So my question for you all was, I think one of the questions we all get so much is, I really believe in my old catalog. It seems now old catalog is easier to promote than ever. How do you promote old catalog?
Well, in this case, we were texting about this, but this dude wasn't even promoting it, right? It
No,
it
not
seems
at
like
all.
he hasn't talked about this band in years, and he's moved on to a different project, and so, in this case, he kinda just lucked out, like, maybe an influencer or something found the song because they
Yeah.
were looking for a song
Did
with a
we
certain
find
title, or
Patient Zero?
I should say, so I've done enough forensic work to say that, like, yeah, the defining moment where the angle gets very steep is that a influencer does, like, here's a bunch of songs I really like right now,
It
shared
was
it,
that
and it
one.
went and when mega viral. Yeah, yeah,
And
that was it.
it was
the
not only
right
the
person
song
found the
on that
song.
video playing, but it was the first song talked about in that video.
First song talked about in that song playing, yeah.
And it
Um,
was, just so people know, it was one of those videos where it's like 10 2000s rock songs I really love that no one's heard.
and now it has tons of million view videos of people lifting weights to it because it's TikTok.
It's a good workout song. I've listened to it a few times. Honestly, it's so quintessential mid-2000s that I swear I've heard it, but also I've never heard it before.
It's very Mars Volta. I mean, it's very funny because I don't really
Very
remember.
Circa Survive.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
really.
very green.
I barely remember this record because this is the one period of my life where I smoked an inordinate amount of pot. I've almost never smoked pot ever, really, in most of my life, and that was the one period where I'm like, I'm gonna get stoned and play around with this mix.
That's the secret sauce, man. That's why it's so
Apparently,
good.
yeah.
Apparently, that's what you have to do more often because you only have more viral hits, 20 years down the line.
It's probably not gonna happen.
You know what this really proves to me, and if I were to take this to my artist to say anything, it's the reason why you promote every single song. Because there's a good song it's a good song, and it never had an opportunity to shine. If it had been promoted, correctly, and I'm just gonna argue it hasn't 'cause it didn't blow up, then
It didn't get promoted correctly at the time. They did the best they could, but there's no doubt about that. This did not go as far. And I'll actually tell you a very weird thing that might help with the analysis. One of the weirdest things you get as a record producer is you'll do a record that sells 300,000 copies, and no bands will call you to make a record from that record because it didn't hit them hard. That record barely did anything, and bands would be traveling all the way from Texas to record with us afterwards.
'cause
So
they heard
even
it
though it
and they're
wasn't
like,
a commercial success, it was
Yeah,
like their peers regarded it as a awesome record,
exactly.
essentially.
that makes total sense. That's what happens with a hit song too. I have discovered that if it's not promoted correctly, you will still have these people that come out of the woodworks and they're like, "Why doesn't anybody know about this song?" And you don't get that reaction with a mid song. And so when artists talk to me and they say, "Well, I have a 10-song album. I want to put it out in 3 months. Let's do like 3 songs." And then they go, "What do we do after the album comes out?" I'm like, "We continue to promote every single song one after another." Because there's something hidden there, and that's been the key to my success. Like, people are like, "Oh, Dustin knows how to promote music, market music." I'm like, "No, I just know how to squeeze everything out of a record to where I get lucky enough to find the song that is gonna blow up."
So there's a couple interesting things, right? So just to kind of unpack a little bit of what you just said, Dustin, like you'd basically agree that the best way to promote a catalog track is really just create content around it like it was a new track.
Yeah, don't even talk about this song came out and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that could be a
Yeah,
good story. It was for this piece of
sure.
content, right? But it's all about the story around the song and what you make of it. So yes or and no, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that like it's creating a bunch of vertical video content and doing the ads on the playlist and rah, rah, rah. Right,
Yeah.
like it's functionally the same as if you had a new single is
Yes.
really what I'm saying. So I think that piece is really important to understand. And I also think, because you do see that happen again and again, like Apes Estate are a great example of that, where like they just started promoting their songs from 5-10 years ago. Like they were kind of new, and it was because they were new to me. Because it's like that thing of like, until your song is the most streamed song in that genre, it is new to people. So just fucking go for it.
It
Right.
doesn't even have to be new though. Coca-Cola's 100 years old, and if I saw a sign for Coke, I'll have a Coke. Like
Yeah.
that's what it's about, right? So I've worked with artists that are 20, 30 years old, not quite legacy, but getting there. And the first thing I do is I promote all their old tracks and get everybody to
Yeah.
go, "Oh, I forgot about this song." And they come in and they listen. I've had multiple old tracks blow up. To me, this is such a good indicator that artists just you don't need to give up on your songs.
I'm
It is
working with an
wild
artist
though.
on a new album drop for next month, and one of the strategies that we had to help kind of like promote the album was actually to go and promote some of their older songs, because they had back in 2020 they had their first like viral hits, like that's kind of what kicked them off. And so we're like, we want to get more love for this album. What if we go and like pound some of those old songs that did well, just to like lift their audience in preparation for this new album
Mhm.
and more people remember them. But on the flip side, like most of the time, I tell artists like if you have a new song, like that should be your number one, like essentially sole focus for like a good month or so, just because of the whole algorithm and 1 month thing, and like you want to fully promote each song you drop. But like, where do you guys think fitting in the older songs lies, like in between all that? Like obviously, new song, it's got to be the priority, right? I think we all agree on that. But how do you fit in the catalog stuff in between or alongside?
Think when momentum dies is what I've been advising a lot of the time is
Yeah.
like you see that. I mean, the other crazy thing is like, like one of the things I've been mapping a lot when I do those dissections of like the artists who go viral is like it is more often than not when you're looking at the top of the viral 50 chart that song came out in the wrong season for the song. That like a
So
Lola Young
true.
Messi, a Julia Wolf, My Room, whatever it is, it's like it's often like 9 months later that song's hitting because kept making videos because they believed in that song and they would just keep bringing it into the conversation once a month or twice a month, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, now it's actually working. Dasha, that Boots Stop Working song comes out in November, doesn't work till the spring.
And also, like, and kind of on a weirdly, like this song that the song that sparked this conversation, weirdly benefited from a similar thing insofar as like there is now definitely a mid 2000s rock thing on TikTok, right? So it's like you don't know if a catalog piece from 20 years ago can magically, like, that genre might have a moment somewhere down the line from nostalgic kids who were not alive when that song came out, who are like, "Oh, actually, I need this." You know what I mean? Or like, "This is what I'm looking for." And so seasonality matters in the short term, but it also very clearly is a long-term thing too. Like, just looking Midwest emo TikTok is another really good example of this, where like front bottom songs from like 15 years ago are suddenly popping off, and like
The
they
front
always like
bottoms aren't
had
that
an
old. Don't
audience.
say that. That makes me upset.
I know, buddy. I'm
They just
sorry.
came out 3 years ago.
But what I'm saying is like that, but that's a song that like had an audience, but now is like on a different level. Or Mountain Goats is another one like that, where like there was an audience, but suddenly the algorithm
Well,
kind
I
of happened. Those are
uh,
respected bands who had a fan base who now have like a
I I
platform.
I pulled up, I mentioned Deftones earlier for something else, which by the way, they're not on Universal, they're on, like, some Reprise Records or something, so I got that wrong, but, I looked up Deftones on Chartmetric, but, like, if you look at their growth curve of monthly listeners over time, they've just been, like, a consistent high climb over the last 7 years. Like, 7 years ago, they were kinda coasting at 2,000,000 monthly listeners, and then slowly ever since 2021, they've built up to 16,000,000 monthly listeners, and they've been around since the '90s
yeah.
or something, right?
No,
And,
That's
like,
the
that is
early
a
90s, yeah.
so they're
interesting
the
jump.
biggest they've
I'm sorry, mid
ever been,
Do you think
ever,
that's an
and
indicator of nostalgia? Like people my age, mid 30s, kind of getting old
yeah.
enough and maybe adopting these platforms for the first time?
It's not just nostalgia with them, though. It's that the kids are just as into him. Like Nick, who
Yeah,
does
I
our
see.
social, is into them. Like, and he's in his early 20s. Like, it's crazy how big they
there's
are
this
kids right
Rediscovering.
huge
now.
wave of young people who are like, not only that, but like there's the new genre, like people are literally calling Deftones core,
Mhm.
which there's a band Loathe and then Thornhill and there's a bunch of other bands. Like there's playlists on Spotify. I have one of them called Deftones core because like they kind of inspired a genre of music, and because all these people like grew up with it, and then also like at this point it's probably the kids of those people who love Deftones now are of an adult age and they're like, you know, listening to Deftones, but also the other bands that are inspired by them. And
There
eh,
there is
they're
also
going
this.
back to the catalog though, and they're falling in love with like Saturday
Yeah.
Night Wrist, is that what the name of
Yep,
it?
yep, yep.
And White Pony and stuff like that.
To answer my original question, though, is the way I would definitely do this, though, is the first thing I think one of the things I see all the time when these things go viral is you first notice that most of these songs are not up on all the platforms that they should be. They don't have music match done. And a lot of that stuff really matters is like getting your lyrics on a screen is whether somebody puts a story up sometimes on Instagram and like being able to bond with people on YouTube really easily is a huge, huge, huge deal. And like checking those boxes and then just telling a lot of stories online, which is what this band actually is doing, is they're playing alternate versions. They're telling the story of the band and the band we did before this, which I produced and stuff like that.
I wonder if like the guy that found it on TikTok and made the video, he was just like, man, I gotta find some songs this week that I like to make my TikTok this week. He's like, I don't know, fucking Turtles or something. And then the song starts like, oh yeah, this is cool.
But that is kind of literally what happens in some of these cases, like talking to some of those creators who do the like 10 coolest 2000s rock songs you haven't
Yeah.
heard videos.
Sometimes they just
Like
Yep.
pop off.
like they're just like going through Spotify algorithms. Like I used to have to curate a radio show like that where I was like finding like weird 60s like proto metal. And it was cool, but it was definitely like I was finding stuff because it was my job to find stuff.
By the way, there are companies, and I'll shed some light on this. There are companies that we work with, and their sole thing is buying up little channels like these, and they just run these all day long. And you hire them, and they place your artists in there. And it is one way that, but it's funny because they're very expensive to run, and they don't produce the lightning in a bottle effect that this has had. Like this is not normal. Like pursuing something like this is very difficult. And I can hear a bunch of artists listening to this and going like, how do I make that happen for my music? And I don't think that's the takeaway because like lightning in a bottle events are so organic that you cannot no there are no such things as industry plants. Like they are not happening or by being forced. So it's really the lesson of don't give up on old songs, or don't just not promote a song because you don't have time, effort, whatever. Every song is worthy of exploring.
Dustin, you're just like the band Leftover Crock. There was no such thing as industry plants until you made one.